Let's dive right into this explainer and uncover something truly fascinating. How Soviet athletes completely dominated global sports while completely ignoring the modern gym equipment we all obsess over today. If you look at fitness culture right now, it's highly commercialized, right? It's deeply complicated. But back in the Cold War era, behind the Iron Curtain, scientists were treating human physical performance with the exact same rigor as the space race.
Now you might be wondering, how did they dominate with such minimal gear? Well, while Western athletes were doing bicep curls in front of mirrors, trying to pump up individual muscles, Soviet scientists working in state-funded labs were quietly engineering the most physically dangerous human beings on Earth. They definitely weren't building bodies for the beach. They were building bodies for absolute dominance in wrestling, gymnastics, and weightlifting, and they did the whole shebang with brutally minimal equipment.
The philosophical difference here is actually wild. Modern gym culture often pushes these grueling 2-hour workouts, endless isolation machines, and chasing what we kind of jokingly call mirror muscles. But Soviet efficiency, it was laser-focused on minimalist, compound movements that built functional explosive power. Their mindset was crystal clear. True strength isn't about volume, and it sure isn't about looking good in a swimsuit. It's about treating your entire body as one unified, incredibly powerful engine. And to build that engine, well, you can't start at the roof. Before you can even think about adding heavy external weights, you have to master your own physical foundation.
Part 1. Mastering the physical foundation. It all starts with something called anti-rotation strength. Basically, this is the ability of your core to resist twisting or bending while keeping your spine completely stable against outside forces. So the crucial takeaway here is that exercises like the around-the-world kettlebell pass, where you're smoothly passing a weight around your waist, build a core that acts like literal armor. Instead of doing thousands of crunches to repeatedly bend the spine, they train the core to refuse to move when it mattered most.
Building on that core stability, we get into unilateral and scapular mastery. First up, pistol squats. These are brutal, full-depth, one-legged squats that demand perfect neuromuscular control and instantly correct any imbalances between your left and right sides. Then you have dead hangs to decompress the spine and build ultimate grip endurance. And right from that hang, scapular pulls. This is the absolute foundational movement for all vertical pulling power and shoulder health. Honestly, if you can't control your own body weight with these baseline movements, Soviet coaches believed you had no business lifting anything else. And hey, this wasn't just for Olympians. Bulletproofing your joints like this is exactly how you stay injury-free in everyday life. Once that foundation of stability is poured, we can shift gears.
Section 2. Building explosive body power.
Pavel Tsatsouline, the legendary coach who later brought a lot of these methods over to the West, famously called the kettlebell swing the czar of exercises. And the reason for that is fascinating. The kettlebell swing isn't a squat actually, it's a hip hinge. When done correctly, it perfectly trains your entire posterior chain. We're talking glutes, hamstrings, and lower back to fire simultaneously and generate what the Soviets called functional explosive power.
Now, to take that raw power to the next level, they utilize the clean and press. When we break this movement down, you can really see how it turns your body into a single power grid. No need for a dozen different machines. It starts with a powerful hip hinge, then triple extension, where ankles, knees, and hips extend all at once for maximum power. It's almost like a jump where your feet never actually leave the floor. You catch the weight in the rack position, bracing that armor-like core we just talked about, and finally press it straight overhead.
So how do we directly translate that raw power into pure speed? Enter the deficit high pull. By standing on a small platform, you elevate your stance, and you're forced into a deeper hinge. Exploding up from there rapidly generates force. This is speed strength, and it's absolutely vital. We have stability, we have power, but here is where the science gets truly mind-blowing, taking this explainer straight into the actual physiology labs of the 1960s.
Section 3. Hacking the nervous system.
Okay, what Dr. Yuri Verkhoshansky discovered back in 1967 is, quite frankly, wild. He found that stepping off a box and taking a rapid drop triggers what's called the myotatic reflex, recruiting maximum motor units instantly. This became known as the shock method. Eventually, Westerners saw this, brought it home, and kind of watered it down into basic plyometrics, like just jumping up onto boxes. But the true shock method is pure nervous system training, forcing your muscles to undergo a rapid stretch and contract with violent force.
0.22 seconds. Literally, that is the absolute maximum fraction of a second your feet are allowed to be on the ground during a true depth jump. If you pause for even a blink longer, you've completely ruined the stimulus and lost that neurological shock. It has to be lightning fast. Then there's this brilliantly engineered hack called post-activation potentiation, or PAP. This is a 3 to 12-minute physiological window where lifting something incredibly heavy unlocks the body's hidden high-threshold motor units. The concept here is beautiful in its simplicity. You lift heavy to unlock your hidden reserves, basically tricking your nervous system into absolute high gear, and then you immediately use them to be explosive.
So what does this actually look like when you're sweating in the gym? It looks a lot like legendary coach Anatoly Bondarchuk's contrast training. You do a heavy strength lift, say heavy back squats. Then you absolutely must rest for 3 to 5 minutes to let fatigue drop while that potentiation window stays wide open. Then you execute an explosive lift with maximum intent, like maximum vertical jumps. This completely proves that you don't need to separate your strength and speed days. You can absolutely train both simultaneously.
And finally, Section 4. The daily movement ritual. After all that intense nervous system shock and heavy lifting, this final pillar is going to completely subvert your expectations of what it actually takes to get strong. Meet Zaryadka. Translating roughly to charge or load up, it's a daily 10 to 15-minute morning routine of submaximal bodyweight movement at just 50 to 60% effort. At one point, 37 million Soviet citizens, from factory workers to Olympic champions, did this every single morning before coffee. Honestly, that sounds like its own kind of torture, but the goal was simply to wake up their nervous system and increase blood flow without inducing any fatigue whatsoever.
The science backing this routine up is a principle called greasing the groove. The Soviet methodology deeply understood that strength is primarily a skill of the nervous system way before it's a quality of the muscle. The more often a movement is fired correctly, the stronger it becomes. So the crucial point here is that they didn't train to failure every day. Instead, they trained just enough to perfectly grease the groove without accumulating any recovery debt.
And the math behind this? Staggering. 91. By doing just 15 easy minutes of Zaryadka a day, you silently accumulate an astonishing 91 hours of quality movement practice every single year. That's 91 hours of perfecting your movement patterns without ever needing an extra rest day to recover from it. It's genius.
All right, let's tie this all together into an actionable takeaway. This is a hyper-efficient, distraction-free week that strips fitness right down to its bare, undeniable essentials. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you hit your kettlebell swings, pistol squats, and dead hangs. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, it's pure Zaryadka for active recovery. And Sunday, complete rest. No decision fatigue, no wasted movement.
Which brings us to our final question for today. Are you ready to strip away the fluff, master your nervous system, and finally train your body as one powerful, unified engine? You really don't need 2 hours in a fancy gym. You just need pure intention. So, which of these brutal Soviet methods are you going to test out first?